Miranda Vale hurled her crystal glass across the room. It shattered against the marble floor, sending champagne spraying across the legs of the three doctors standing before her. "Get out," she whispered. "All of you. Get out." 5 years. 5 years of surgeries, specialists, and promises. 5 years of being told she'd never walk again. But tonight, a janitor, a broke single father mopping floors in her building, looked her dead in the eyes and said 7 words that made her blood run cold. "I can help you walk again." What happened next will change everything you believe about healing. But here's the twist. He wasn't lying. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. And if this hits you, subscribe and follow the channel. Now, let's begin. Miranda Vale threw the folder at Dr. Patterson's chest. 300 pages of medical records, test results, and MRI scans scattered across the conference table like dead leaves. Patterson didn't flinch. He'd been her neurologist for 4 years. He was used to this. "Say it again," Miranda said. Her voice was low, dangerous. Patterson adjusted his glasses. "Miranda, I understand your frustration. I didn't ask you to understand anything. I asked you to say it again." He exhaled. "The nerve damage in your lumbar spine is permanent. There is no surgical intervention, no experimental therapy, and no clinical trial that will restore motor function to your lower extremities. I'm sorry." Miranda gripped the armrests of her wheelchair so hard her knuckles turned white. She could feel the leather bending under her fingers. She could feel that. Everything above the waist she could feel. Everything below was silence. "You're the 9th doctor who's told me that," she said. "Then perhaps," Patterson said carefully, "it's time to accept get out." "Miranda, I said get out. Send your bill to my assistant, and don't call me again." Patterson gathered the scattered papers slowly. He paused at the door. "Acceptance isn't defeat, Miranda. Sometimes it's the beginning of, if you finish that sentence, I will buy your practice and shut it down by Friday." He left. Miranda sat alone in the conference room on the 42nd floor of Vale Industries. Through the glass walls, Manhattan stretched out beneath her. Towers of steel and light. Millions of people moving, running, walking. Walking. The word itself had become a wound. She pressed the button on her chair and rolled toward the window. Her reflection stared back at her. 44 years old. Sharp jawline. Dark hair pulled back tight. Eyes that could cut through a boardroom in seconds. Forbes had called her the Iron Woman of Wall Street. Time magazine had put her on the cover with the headline, "Unbreakable." She wanted to laugh. She wanted to scream. Her phone buzzed. Claire, her assistant. "Ms. Vale, your 7 o'clock dinner at Aurelio's has been confirmed. Your driver is downstairs." "Cancel it." "Ma'am, it's the governor. He's been trying to..." "Cancel it." Silence. Then, "Yes, ma'am." Miranda turned off the phone. She sat in the dark conference room for 20 minutes, doing nothing. Just breathing. Just existing in the cage of her own body. Evan Marsh was late. He was always late. Not because he was lazy. He'd worked harder in the last 6 years than most people work in a lifetime. He was late because life kept throwing punches, and he kept getting up, just slow enough to miss the next bus. Tonight, the reason was orange juice. His daughter, Lily, 8 years old, had spilled an entire carton of Tropicana on her homework. Not just any homework. The science project due tomorrow. The one about the solar system. The one she'd spent 3 weeks building out of styrofoam balls and acrylic paint. Jupiter was ruined. Saturn lost a ring. Lily had cried. Not the dramatic, screaming kind of crying. The quiet kind. The kind where the tears just fall, and the kid doesn't even bother wiping them, because she's already learned that some things just break. That kind of crying destroyed Evan more than anything else in the world. Hey, look at me. He knelt down beside her at the kitchen table. We're gonna fix this. It's due tomorrow, Dad. I know. Mrs. Henderson said no late projects. I know. That's why we're not gonna be late. He grabbed paper towels. He grabbed the hairdryer. He spent 45 minutes carefully drying each planet, repainting Jupiter's red spot with the only paint they had left, a tube of burnt orange from the dollar store. It wasn't perfect. Jupiter looked more like Mars now. But Lily smiled, and that was worth every second. By the time he dropped her off at his mother's apartment, kissed her forehead, and jogged 6 blocks to the subway, he was 40 minutes behind schedule. Evan worked the night shift as a janitor at Vale Tower. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what he'd imagined for himself 20 years ago, when he'd been accepted into a physical therapy program at NYU. But life doesn't care about your plans. Life just happens. His wife, Sarah, had died 4 years ago. Ovarian cancer. She was 31. They'd caught it late because they didn't have insurance at the time. And by the time they scraped together enough to see a specialist, it had spread. She'd lasted 8 months after the diagnosis. 8 months of hospital rooms and machines and the slow, cruel subtraction of the woman he loved. She died on a Tuesday morning in April. Lily was 4. She didn't understand why Mommy wasn't coming home. Evan couldn't explain it because he didn't understand either. After Sarah, everything fell apart. He dropped out of the PT program, couldn't afford it anymore, couldn't focus, couldn't do anything except keep Lily fed and clothed and alive. He picked up whatever work he could. Construction, delivery driving, warehouse stocking. Eventually, the janitorial job at Vale Tower came along. Night shift, decent pay, health benefits. He took it. Now he spent his nights pushing a mop across marble floors in a building worth more than he'd earn in 1,000 lifetimes. He didn't complain. Complaining was a luxury he couldn't afford. He badged in at the service entrance at 9:47 p.m. 17 minutes late. Ray, the security guard, shook his head. Evan, come on, man. I know. Hendricks is looking for you. He's in one of his moods. When isn't he? I'm serious. He's writing people up tonight. Rodriguez got sent home. Evan cursed under his breath. He couldn't afford a write-up. One more and he was done. He grabbed his cart from the supply closet and headed for the elevators. His assignment tonight was floors 40 through 45. Executive floors. The ones with the expensive carpet and the artwork that cost more than his apartment. He started on 40. Vacuumed, emptied trash, wiped down surfaces, moved to 41. Same routine. 42. He pushed the cart into the conference room on 42 and stopped. Someone was in there. A woman. In a wheelchair. Sitting alone in the dark, facing the window. Evan's first instinct was to back out quietly. Executive floors were sensitive. You didn't disturb the big shots. You cleaned around them, behind them, like you were invisible. That was the unspoken rule. But something stopped him. She wasn't moving. Not her hands, not her head. She was completely still, like a statue. And even in the darkness, even from across the room, he could see something in her reflection in the glass. She was crying. Not the way Lily cried over orange juice and planets. This was different. This was the kind of crying that comes from a place so deep it doesn't make sound. Just tears rolling down a face that's forgotten how to ask for help. Evan stood there for a long moment. He should leave. He knew he should leave. Instead, he said, "You all right?" Miranda's head snapped toward him. Her eyes were red, but the tears stopped instantly, like she'd flipped a switch. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, controlled, the voice of someone who gave orders, not someone who answered questions. "Evan, I'm the janitor. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Then don't. Leave." He nodded, grabbed the handle of his cart, started to turn. Then he looked at her again, at the wheelchair, at her legs, at the way her feet sat motionless on the footrests, turned slightly inward. He recognized the positioning. He recognized the muscle atrophy in her calves, visible even through her slacks. He recognized it because he'd spent 2 years studying it. "Spinal cord injury?" he said. Miranda stared at him. "Excuse me?" "Your injury. Lumbar region, right? L1, maybe L2? The silence that followed was absolute. Miranda's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion to something much more dangerous. Curiosity. "How would a janitor know that?" she said. "I wasn't always a janitor." "I didn't ask what you were. I asked how you know." Evan let go of the cart. He shouldn't be having this conversation. He should be mopping the floor on 43 right now. Hendricks was going to fire him. But he couldn't walk away. Something in this woman's eyes, something behind the armor, looked exactly the way Sarah looked in those last months. Trapped, exhausted, done fighting, but unable to stop. "I studied physical therapy," he said. 2 years at NYU before I had to drop out. My focus was spinal rehabilitation. Miranda laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter and cold. "A janitor who studied spinal rehab. That's cute. Let me guess. You think you can fix me?" "No," Evan said. "Nobody can fix you. Fixing isn't the point." "Then what is?" He paused. He thought about Sarah, about the last conversation they'd had before she died. She'd grabbed his hand, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Don't let Lily forget that broken things still work." "Your doctors told you it's permanent," Evan said, "that you'll never walk again." 9 of them, Miranda said. "The best in the world." "They're probably right." "Then why are you still talking?" "Because probably isn't definitely, and because I can see something they can't." "And what's that?" He looked at her, straight at her, not at the wheelchair, not at the corner office or the tailored suit or the empire she'd built. At her. "You stopped trying," he said. "Not physically, emotionally. You gave up on yourself a long time ago, and your body followed." The words hit Miranda like a slap. Her jaw tightened. Her hands trembled. "You don't know anything about me," she said. "You're right, I don't. But I know what it looks like when someone's sitting in the dark, crying at 10 o'clock at night in an empty building. I know what it looks like when someone's got everything and still feels like they've got nothing. And I know—" He stopped himself. "What?" she demanded. "You know what?" "I know what it sounds like when a doctor says there's nothing more they can do." The room went silent. Miranda stared at him for a long time. Evan could feel his heart pounding. He'd crossed every line. He'd just spoken to the CEO of Vale Industries like she was a person. Not a client, not a boss, not a billionaire. A person. "My wife died 4 years ago," he said quietly. "Cancer. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. She was 31. We had a daughter. She was 4. He didn't know why he said it. He never talked about Sarah to strangers. But something in this moment felt like it mattered. Miranda didn't respond. She just looked at him. And for the first time in 5 years, someone was looking back at her without wanting something, without an agenda, without pity, just recognition.
"What's your name again?" she asked.
Evan Marsh.
"Evan. I have 9 of the top neurologists in this country telling me my spine is done. I have a team of the best physical therapists money can buy. Why would I listen to a janitor?"
Because the neurologists see your spine. The therapists see your muscles. None of them see you. Miranda swallowed hard. "I can help you walk again," Evan said. The words hung in the air like a dare. Miranda gripped her armrests. "That's either the bravest or the stupidest thing anyone's ever said to me." "Probably both," Evan said. He almost smiled. Miranda didn't smile back. But she didn't tell him to leave. "You're serious," she said. "Dead serious." "Why?" "Because my daughter needed a solar system fixed tonight, and I fixed it. Because my wife needed someone to hold her hand while she died, and I held it. Because that's what I do, Ms. Vale. I show up for people. Even when it's messy. Even when it doesn't make sense." Miranda turned her chair to face him fully. The light from the city caught her face, and he could see the tracks the tears had left. "If you're lying to me," she said, "if this is some kind of play—" "I mop floors for $14 an hour. I've got a kid who eats cereal for dinner twice a week because groceries are expensive. I'm not playing anything. I just—" He took a breath. "I see something in you that you don't see anymore. And I think that's the problem." Miranda was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Tomorrow, 6 a.m., this room." Evan blinked. "What?" "You said you can help me walk, so prove it. 6 a.m. Don't be late." She pressed the button on her chair and rolled past him toward the elevator without another word. Evan stood alone in the dark conference room. His hands were shaking. He looked down at his mop, at his faded uniform, at the cart full of cleaning supplies. He'd just told a billionaire he could help her walk. He pulled out his phone. One text from his mother. "Lily's asleep. Jupiter looks great. You're a good dad." He read it twice. Then he put the phone away, gripped the handle of his cart, and went back to work. Floor 43 wasn't going to clean itself. But tomorrow everything was going to change, and he had no idea how much. Evan didn't sleep that night. He finished his shift at 4 in the morning, took the subway home, and sat on the edge of his bed staring at the wall. His uniform smelled like floor cleaner and sweat. His back ached from 6 hours of pushing a mop, and his mind was racing so fast he couldn't grab onto a single thought long enough to make sense of it. He'd told a billionaire he could help her walk, a woman whose medical file probably cost more than his apartment, a woman who'd seen the best specialists on earth, and he, Evan Marsh, janitor, dropout, single father of an 8-year-old, had looked her in the eyes and said those words like he actually believed them. The terrifying part was that he did. He showered. He made coffee. He sat at the kitchen table and opened the one textbook he'd kept from NYU, Dr. Raymond Kessler's Neuroplasticity and Spinal Rehabilitation, New Frontiers. The pages were dog-eared and coffee-stained. Sarah used to tease him about it. She'd said he treated that book like a Bible. He turned to chapter 14, The Role of Psychological Barriers in Motor Recovery. He'd read it so many times the spine cracked open naturally to that page. At 5:15 he called his mother. "Evan, what's wrong? Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine, Ma. She's still sleeping, right?" "Of course she's sleeping. It's 5 in the morning. Why are you calling me at 5 in the morning? I need you to take her to school today. I take her every day, Evan. I know, I need to be somewhere at 6. His mother paused. Gloria Marsh had raised 3 kids on a nurse's salary in the Bronx. She could read her son like a headline.
Somewhere, she repeated. What kind of somewhere? It's hard to explain.
Try. He rubbed his face. I met someone at work. Someone who needs help.
A woman?
Ma,
Is she pretty?
she's in a wheelchair. Gloria went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer.
What kind of help?
The kind I used to study. Another pause, longer this time.
Evan, baby, you dropped out of that program for a reason.
I dropped out because I couldn't pay for it, not because I couldn't do it.
There's a difference between knowing something and being qualified to do it.
I know.
So what are you doing?
He looked at the textbook on the table, at the notes he'd scribbled in the margins years ago, at the diagrams of spinal pathways and neural connections that he still understood better than most of the people who'd graduated. Something stupid, probably, he said. But it feels right. Gloria sighed.
You sound like your father.
Is that good or bad?
Both.
Go, I've got Lily. He hung up. He put on the cleanest clothes he owned, a navy blue button-down and khakis that he usually saved for parent-teacher conferences. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. He looked tired. He looked broke. He looked like exactly what he was. But he also looked like a man who was done standing still. He got to Vale Tower at 5:50. The morning security guard, Dennis, looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Marsh, your shift ended 2 hours ago. I have a meeting. Dennis laughed. A meeting? With who? 42nd floor. The laughter stopped. Dennis leaned forward. The 42nd floor is executive only. You need clearance for... Call up. Tell them Evan Marsh is here. She's expecting me. Dennis stared at him for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone. Evan watched his face change as someone on the other end confirmed. Dennis hung up slowly. Elevator's on your left, he said. You already know that. Evan nodded and walked past. His heart was hammering. The conference room on 42 was different in the daylight. Morning sun poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows and turned everything gold. The shattered glass from whatever Miranda had thrown the night before had been cleaned up. The table had been polished. Everything was pristine. Miranda was already there. She sat at the head of the table in her wheelchair, dressed in black. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was composed, controlled, like she'd spent the last few hours rebuilding every wall he'd cracked the night before. Beside her stood a woman in a gray suit with a tablet in her hand. Claire, her assistant. And behind Claire stood a man Evan had never seen. Big guy. Shaved head. Arms crossed. Security. Miranda looked at Evan the way a judge looks at a defendant. You're early, she said. You told me not to be late. I also told you to prove it. So let's start with this. Who are you, really? I told you last night. Evan Marsh, janitor, single dad. I know what you told me. I had Claire run a background check while you were mopping floors. She glanced at her assistant. Claire tapped the tablet. Evan James Marsh, 36, born in the Bronx, graduated top of his class at DeWitt Clinton High School, accepted into NYU's Doctor of Physical Therapy program on a partial scholarship, completed 2 years before withdrawing. Reason listed, financial hardship. Married Sarah Ann Marsh, née Callahan, in 2016. One daughter, Lillian Grace Marsh, born 2017. Wife deceased, 2021. Currently employed as a janitorial technician at Vale Tower. No criminal record. No malpractice claims. Obviously, he never practiced. Miranda let those words sit in the air. Then she looked at Evan. 2 years of physical therapy school. That's it. That's what you're bringing to me. That's what's on paper, Evan said.
But I didn't stop learning when I stopped going to class. Meaning what? Meaning I've spent the last 4 years reading every study, every journal, every case report I could find on spinal cord rehabilitation. I couldn't afford school, but the library's free. PubMed is free. Knowledge doesn't care about your tax bracket. Miranda tilted her head slightly. You read medical journals. For fun. Not for fun, for purpose. I always planned to go back, finish the degree. Life kept getting in the way. Life, Miranda repeated. That's a convenient excuse. Something flashed in Evan's eyes. He took a step closer. The security guard shifted. Evan didn't care. My wife was dying, he said. His voice was steady, but there was fire underneath. She was 31 years old and she was dying. And I had a baby daughter who needed to eat and sleep and have someone tell her everything was going to be okay, even when nothing was okay. I worked 3 jobs. I held my wife's hand in the hospital at night. I studied when Lily was asleep because it was the only thing that made me feel like I still had a future. So don't call it an excuse. Call it whatever you want, but don't call it that. The room went dead silent. Claire looked at the floor. The security guard uncrossed his arms. Miranda didn't move. She just watched him, and something behind her eyes shifted. Not much, barely visible, but it was there. A crack in the armor. Sit down, she said quietly. Evan pulled out a chair and sat across from her. His hands were trembling slightly under the table. He pressed them against his thighs to steady them. Tell me what you think you see, Miranda said. And don't waste my time with motivational speeches. I've heard them all. I've paid thousands of dollars for them. They don't work. Evan leaned forward. Last night, when you were sitting in the dark, you told me 9 doctors said it's permanent. Lumbar spine injury. Complete loss of motor function below the waist. Correct? Correct. When did it happen? Miranda's jaw tightened. 5 years ago. How? That's not relevant. It's the most relevant thing there is. I fell. From where? A balcony. Evan waited. Miranda didn't elaborate. How high? He asked. 3rd floor. Were you alone? I said it's not relevant. You said your doctors can't help you. You want to know what I think? I think the fall broke your spine, but something else broke you. And until we deal with both, your legs aren't going to move. Not because they can't, because you won't let them. Miranda's face hardened. That's psychobabble. My injury is neurological, physical. The nerves are damaged. Some of them, yes. But your MR is, I'm guessing they've shown some preserved pathways. Incomplete injury. Am I wrong? For the first time, Miranda hesitated. The hesitation was small. A blink. A fraction of a second where the certainty in her eyes flickered. How did you know that? She asked. Because if it were truly complete, total severing, you wouldn't have sensation in your legs at all. Last night, when you gripped your armrests, your left foot moved, just barely, a twitch. You probably didn't even notice, but I did. Miranda looked down at her feet. She stared at them like they belonged to someone else. That's not possible, she whispered. I haven't had movement in 5 years, I know. But your body is still trying, Miranda. Your nervous system hasn't given up.
You have. Stop saying that. It's the truth. The truth. She laughed, but it broke halfway through. You want the truth? I fell off a balcony because I was arguing with my ex-husband. He grabbed my arm. I pulled away. I went over the railing. He watched me fall, and he didn't even call 911. The neighbors did. So yes, something else broke me. Congratulations, you figured it out. Now what? Evan didn't flinch. He held her gaze. Now we start.
Start what? You don't have a degree. You don't have equipment. I have something none of your doctors have. What? I've got nothing to lose. And neither do you. Miranda stared at him. Her eyes were wet. She blinked hard and the tears disappeared. She would not cry in front of this man again. Claire, she said, without looking away from Evan, clear my schedule for the next 2 hours. Claire hesitated. Ma'am, you have a board meeting at... I said clear it. Claire tapped her tablet quickly and left the room. The security guard followed. The door clicked shut. It was just the two of them now. Evan reached into the bag he'd brought, a worn gym bag that had seen better days. He pulled out a resistance band, a tennis ball, and a small, battered notebook filled with handwritten notes. Miranda looked at the items. That's your equipment? For today? Yes. I have a fully outfitted rehabilitation gym on the 38th floor. Custom built. $2 million. Have you used it? Silence. That's what I thought, Evan said. We're not starting with machines. We're starting with this. He held up the tennis ball. A tennis ball. I want you to hold it in your right hand and squeeze it as hard as you can. My hands are fine. It's my legs that... I know. Squeeze the ball. Miranda took the ball. She squeezed it. Hard. Her forearm muscles tensed. Her grip was strong. Good, Evan said. Now close your eyes. Why? Because I need you to trust me for 30 seconds. I don't trust anyone for 30 seconds. Then this is going to be a long morning. Close your eyes. She closed them. He could see the resistance in every line of her body. She hated this. She hated being vulnerable. She hated not being in control. Keep squeezing the ball, Evan said. Now I want you to focus on the feeling in your hand, the pressure, the texture of the felt. Feel where the effort starts, in your fingers, your palm, your forearm. Follow it up through your arm to your shoulder. This is ridiculous. Keep going. Follow the effort. Shoulder to your chest. Chest to your core. Can you feel your core engaging? Yes? Stay there, in your core. Now, and don't force this, just let your awareness drift downward, past your waist, into your hips. Don't move anything. Don't try to move anything. Just notice what's there. Miranda was quiet for 10 seconds, 20, 30. I can't feel anything, she said, but her voice wavered. You can't, or you're afraid to. Her eyes flew open. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Your brain has spent 5 years telling your legs they don't exist. That's not just physical, it's a survival mechanism. You built a wall so you wouldn't have to feel the loss. But the wall doesn't just block the pain. It blocks everything. Miranda shook her head. You're not a doctor. You're not a therapist. You're a janitor with a tennis ball and a bag of theories. You're right, Evan said. But I'm also the only person in 5 years who's seen your foot move. That stopped her. She looked down at her feet again, motionless, dead weight on the footrests. It didn't move, she said. It did. I would have felt it. Not if you've trained yourself not to feel. Miranda pressed her palms against her eyes. Her shoulders shook once, then steadied. Why are you doing this? She asked. The edge was gone from her voice. What was left was raw, despair. "You don't know me. You owe me nothing. Why are you sitting here at 6 in the morning trying to convince a stranger that she can do something every expert says is impossible?" Evan put the tennis ball on the table. He looked at his hands for a moment. They were rough hands, calloused from work. Sarah used to hold them and say they were the safest place in the world. "Because 4 years ago, I sat next to a hospital bed and watched the only person I ever loved die," he said. "And there was nothing I could do. Nothing. I held her hand and I talked to her and I told her it was okay to go. And she went. And every day since then, I've woken up carrying the weight of that helplessness. It never goes away. It just becomes part of you." He looked up at Miranda. "But you're alive. You're breathing. Your body is still fighting even though you've stopped. And I can't walk past that. I can't walk past someone who still has a chance and just mop the floor and pretend I don't see it. Because if Sarah taught me anything, it's that the worst thing in the world isn't being broken. It's giving up when you don't have to." Miranda didn't speak for a long time. The morning sun shifted across the table between them. The city hummed, 42 stories below. Somewhere out there, Lily was waking up in her grandmother's apartment, eating cereal, getting ready for school, carrying her slightly orange Jupiter to class. "Every morning," Miranda finally said, "my nurses lift me out of bed. They dress me. They put me in this chair. And every morning I lie there for a few seconds before they come in. And I try. I try to move my toes. Just one. Just a twitch. And nothing happens. Every single morning for 5 years, nothing happens." "But you still try," Evan said. "Yes." "Then you haven't given up." "Not really." "It feels like I have." "Feeling isn't fact. That's the first thing you need to learn." Miranda wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Quick, efficient, like even crying had to be productive. "If I agree to this," she said, "and I'm not saying I am, what does it look like?" "It looks like hard work, harder than anything you've done. And I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. The physical part will come. But first, we have to deal with what happened on that balcony. We have to deal with why your brain shut your legs down. We have to deal with all the things you've been hiding behind that desk, and that empire, and that mask you wear." "I don't wear a mask. You're wearing one right now." Miranda's mouth tightened. Then, slowly, unexpectedly, something happened that hadn't happened in years. The corner of her mouth lifted. Not a smile, not yet, but the ghost of one, the memory of what it felt like to be honest. "You're infuriating," she said. "I've been told." "And you really believe this can work?" "I believe you can work. The rest will follow." Miranda rolled her chair back from the table. She looked at the tennis ball. She looked at the resistance band. She looked at the battered notebook, full of handwritten notes from a man who'd never finished his degree, but never stopped learning. "Every morning," she said, 6 a.m., this room. You tell no one, not your friends, not the press, not anyone on my staff. Claire and my security know. That's it. If this leaks, you're done." "Understood." "And Evan?" "Yeah?" "If you're late, even once, it's over." He almost smiled. "I'll set 2 alarms." "Set 3. Miranda pressed the button on her chair and rolled toward the door. She stopped before she reached it. "Your wife," she said, without turning around. "Sarah. What was she like?" Evan's throat tightened. Nobody asked him that anymore. People asked how he was coping, how Lily was doing, whether he was seeing anyone. Nobody asked what Sarah was like. "She was brave," he said. "Even at the end. Especially at the end." Miranda nodded, still facing the door. "Brave is expensive."
Yes, it is. She left. Evan sat alone in the conference room. The sun was fully up now, flooding the space with light. He looked down at his hands again. Shaking. He was shaking. He pulled out his phone. No messages from his mom yet.
Lily was probably on her way to school. He thought about calling her, just to hear her voice, but she'd be on the bus by now. Instead, he opened the Notes app and started writing. A plan. Session by session. Week by week. Everything he'd studied, everything he'd read, everything he'd dreamed about applying if he'd ever gotten the chance. He was getting the chance. The elevator chimed in the hallway. He heard footsteps. The conference room door opened, and Hendricks, his supervisor, stood there in his stiff white shirt with his clipboard, looking at Evan like he'd caught him stealing silverware. "Marsh, what are you doing on the executive floor? Your shift ended 4 hours ago." Evan closed his notebook and stood up. "I had a meeting." Hendricks laughed. "A meeting? You had a meeting on 42. Right. Call the front desk. They'll confirm." "I don't need to call anyone. I need you off this floor before I write you up for trespassing in a restricted area."
Evan picked up his bag. He walked toward the door. Hendricks blocked it partially. Not enough to stop him, but enough to make a point. "I don't know what you think you're doing," Hendricks said, "but people like us don't have meetings on 42. We clean 42. Know the difference?" Evan looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel small. "I know the difference," Evan said. "Do you?" He walked past Hendricks and into the elevator. The doors closed. He leaned against the wall, closed his eyes, and let out a long, slow breath. Tomorrow. 6 a.m. 3 alarms. He pressed the button for the lobby and headed home to his daughter. 3 alarms went off at 4:30 in the morning, and Evan was already awake. He'd been lying in the dark for an hour, staring at the ceiling, running through his notes in his head. Session 1. The real one. Yesterday had been a conversation. Today had to be something more. He rolled out of bed, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with his notebook open. The plan was simple on paper. Neuroplasticity-based rehabilitation. Rewire the brain's connection to the lower body through repetitive sensory input, emotional engagement, and progressive motor cueing. Start small. Build pathways. Trust the process. Simple on paper, terrifying in reality. He'd never done this with a real patient. He'd practiced techniques on classmates at NYU. He'd studied case reports of people who'd regained partial function after incomplete spinal injuries. He knew the science, but knowing and doing were two different countries, and he was about to cross the border without a passport. Lily wandered into the kitchen at 5:15, rubbing her eyes. "Dad? Why are you dressed already?" "I have to go somewhere early, sweetheart. Grandma's coming to take you to school." "Again?" "For a little while. It's a new thing I'm doing." Lily climbed into the chair across from him and rested her chin on her hands. She had Sarah's eyes. Every time Evan looked at his daughter, he saw the woman he'd lost, and it broke him and healed him at the same time. "Is it a good thing?" Lily asked. "I think so. I hope so." "Then why do you look scared?" He smiled. Kids saw everything. "Because good things are scary sometimes." "That doesn't make sense." "It will when you're older." "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Gloria arrived at 5:30. She kissed Lily on the forehead and gave Evan a long look as he grabbed his bag. "You look like you're heading into battle," she said. "Maybe I am." "Then when?" He took the subway to Vale Tower. The morning was cold, the kind of late autumn cold that gets into your bones and stays there. He badged in at the service entrance. Dennis waved him through without a word this time. The elevator ride to 42 felt longer than it should have. Miranda was waiting. Same chair, same position at the head of the table, same black outfit. But something was different today. Her hands were in her lap instead of gripping the armrests. Her shoulders were slightly lower. She looked like someone who'd barely slept, but had decided to show up anyway. "You set 3 alarms," she said. 4, actually. Overachiever? From the woman who built a billion-dollar company before 40? Miranda almost responded to that, but caught herself. She straightened. "So, what now?" Evan set his bag on the table. He pulled out the tennis ball, the resistance band, the notebook, and one new item, a small handheld vibration massager he'd bought at a drugstore on the way home yesterday. It had cost him $12. $12 he probably shouldn't have spent. "We start with your feet," he said. "I can't feel my feet." "That's what we're going to test." He knelt down in front of her wheelchair. "I'm going to touch your feet."
Is that okay?
Miranda stiffened. "I have nurses who do that. I'm not your nurse. I'm asking permission." She looked at him. He was kneeling on the floor of a 42nd-story conference room in a building she owned, asking permission to touch her feet. The absurdity of it wasn't lost on her. "Fine," she said. He carefully removed her left shoe, then her right. Her feet were thin, pale from years without use. The muscles had atrophied significantly. He placed his hand gently under her left foot. "Can you feel that?" he asked. "No." He pressed harder. "Now?" "No." He took the vibration massager and turned it on. He pressed it against the sole of her left foot. The buzzing sound filled the quiet room. "Anything?" Miranda closed her eyes. Concentrated. "No, nothing." "Okay." He moved to the right foot. Same process. Gentle touch. Pressure. Vibration. "Wait," Miranda said. Evan froze. "What?" "Do that again. The vibration. On the right side." He pressed the massager against the ball of her right foot. Miranda's brow furrowed. Her lips pressed together. "I don't know if I'm feeling something or imagining it," she said. "Describe it." "It's like a hum, very faint, like hearing music through a wall. You know it's there, but you can't make out the song." Evan felt his pulse quicken. He kept his voice steady. "That's not imagination. That's sensation. Faint, but it's there." "That's impossible. Dr. Patterson said—" "Dr. Patterson tested you in a clinical setting, with standardized instruments. He was looking for normal nerve response. I'm not looking for normal. I'm looking for anything." Miranda opened her eyes. "A hum." "A hum is a start." "A start toward what? I need to walk, Evan, not hum." "Every signal your brain sends to your legs starts as something smaller than a hum. Right now, your nervous system is like a highway that's been closed for 5 years. The road is still there. It's cracked, it's overgrown, but it's there. We're not building a new highway. We're clearing the old one. And a $12 massager from CVS is going to do that. Today, yes. Tomorrow, we'll try something different. The point isn't the tool. The point is repetition, stimulation, waking up pathways that your brain shut down." Miranda looked at her right foot. She stared at it the way someone stares at a phone that hasn't rung in years, willing it to make a sound. "Do it again," she said. They worked for 2 hours. Evan spent the first hour on sensory stimulation. He worked his way up from her feet, to her ankles, to her calves, using the massager, his hands, warm compresses made from towels soaked in hot water from the conference room's private bathroom. He documented everything, every response, every non-response, every flicker of something in Miranda's expression. The second hour, he shifted to what he called brain work. "Close your eyes," he said.
We did this yesterday, and we'll do it tomorrow, and the day after. Close your eyes. She closed them. "I want you to picture your right foot. Not look at it, picture it. In your mind. See the shape of it, the toes, the arch. See it the way it used to be." "I remember what my foot looks like, Evan." "I don't want you to remember it. I want you to feel it. There's a difference. Memory is in your head. Feeling is in your body. I need you to put yourself back inside your foot. Inhabit it." "That sounds insane." Neuroplasticity sounds insane until it works. Your brain is plastic. It can rewire itself. But it needs direction. It needs you to actively engage with the parts of your body you've abandoned. You have to move back in. Miranda kept her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. Evan watched her face. He could see the effort, the concentration. He could also see the moment she hit the wall, a subtle tightening around her mouth, a tension in her forehead. "What just happened?" he asked. "Nothing." "Something changed. What did you feel?" "I said nothing." "Miranda." She opened her eyes. They were hard again, walls up, drawbridge raised. "I felt nothing because there's nothing to feel. This is a waste of time." Evan didn't react. He'd expected this. He'd read about it in every case study. The moment where the patient's emotional defense system kicks in to protect them from hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope meant disappointment was possible. And for someone who'd been disappointed as many times as Miranda had, the brain would do anything to avoid that risk. "Tell me about the balcony," he said. Miranda's head snapped toward him. "No." "You told me your ex-husband grabbed you. You went over the railing. He didn't call for help." "I told you that in a moment of weakness. It won't happen again." "It wasn't weakness. It was honesty. And it's connected to everything we're doing here." "My ex-husband has nothing to do with my spine." "He has everything to do with it. The trauma of that fall isn't just in your back, Miranda. It's in your brain. Your nervous system experienced something so violent, so terrifying, that it went into lockdown. It shut down everything below the point of injury, not just because of the physical damage, but because your brain decided it wasn't safe to feel anymore." "That's your theory." "It's supported by research. PTSD can amplify neurological symptoms. Emotional trauma can suppress motor recovery. Your body is protecting you from the memory of falling. And as long as it's doing that, your legs stay off." Miranda rolled her chair backward, putting distance between them. "You're overstepping." "Probably." "I didn't hire you to be my therapist." "You didn't hire me at all. I'm here for free. And I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who knows that your body and your mind aren't two separate things. They're one system. And right now, your system is stuck." "I have a therapist. I have a psychiatrist. I have a team of people whose actual job it is to help me process what happened." "Have they helped?" Miranda's mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. "That's what I thought," Evan said. Not cruelly, gently. The way he talked to Lily, when she didn't want to admit she was struggling with something. "You want to know what happened on the balcony?" Miranda said suddenly. Her voice was different now, flat, detached, like she was reading a news report about someone else's life. "Fine. Richard and I were married for 6 years. He was charming, intelligent, successful. Everyone thought we were perfect. Behind closed doors, he was controlling, manipulative, and when things didn't go his way, he got physical.
Not often, just enough to keep me afraid. Evan sat completely still. He didn't interrupt. He barely breathed. That night, I told him I was filing for divorce. He didn't take it well. He followed me onto the balcony. He grabbed my arm. I pulled away.
And I went over. She paused. 3 stories. I hit a concrete ledge on the way down, then the ground. I was conscious the whole time. I felt my back break. I heard it. And I lay there on the ground looking up at the balcony, and he was standing there, looking down at me. He didn't scream. He didn't run for help. He just stood there, watching. How long? I don't know. Probably 30 seconds. Felt like an hour. Then he went back inside. The neighbors heard me screaming and called 911. Evan's hands were clenched in his lap. He forced them open. Where is he now? Richard? He's fine. Living in Connecticut with his new wife. He was never charged. I fell from a balcony during an argument. There was no proof he pushed me. Technically, he didn't. He just grabbed me and I lost my balance. Legally, that's ambiguous. With his lawyers, ambiguous means acquitted. And you never pressed charges? No. I was in the hospital for 7 months. By the time I was out, I just wanted it to be over. I wanted to forget. She looked down at her legs. I got my wish, I suppose. I forgot how to feel. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing in the room. Evan stood up slowly. He walked to the window, not to look at the view, to give her space, to give himself a moment to push down the anger rising in his chest. He thought of Sarah. He thought of Lily. He thought about the fact that there were people in this world who hurt the people they were supposed to love, and they walked away clean while their victims sat in wheelchairs. He's the reason you stopped trying, Evan said quietly, still facing the window. I haven't stopped trying. I told you, every morning I try to move my toes. You try to move your toes because you want to prove the doctors wrong. That's ego. That's defiance. That's not healing. He turned back to face her. Healing means admitting that what happened to you wasn't your fault. Healing means letting yourself feel the fall. All of it. The fear, the pain, the betrayal. You've locked it all away, and your body is keeping score. Miranda's chin trembled. Just once. She steadied it immediately. You're asking me to relive the worst moment of my life, she said. No, I'm asking you to stop running from it. There's a difference. It feels the same. I know. It felt the same for me when I finally let myself grieve Sarah. For 2 years after she died, I didn't cry. Not once. I told myself I had to be strong for Lily. I told myself crying was self-indulgent. I held it all in until one night I was doing laundry, and I found one of her socks behind the dryer. Just a sock. A stupid blue sock with polka dots. And I sat on the floor and I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I cried for 3 hours. Lily found me in the morning, asleep on the laundry room floor, holding a sock. Miranda's eyes glistened. What did Lily say? She sat down next to me and said, "It's okay to be sad, Daddy. Mommy would say, it's okay." Evan's voice cracked. He let it. She was 5 years old. 5. And she understood something I've been fighting for 2 years. That grief isn't weakness. It's the price of love. And refusing to pay it doesn't make you strong. It makes you stuck. A tear fell down Miranda's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I'm stuck, she whispered. I know. I'm so stuck I can't even feel my own body. I know. And I'm terrified that even if I do everything you say, even if I open every door I've locked, it still won't work. that I'll still be in this chair. Evan knelt in front of her again. He looked up at her the way he looked up at Sarah in the hospital bed, with absolute presence, with nothing held back. "It might not work," he said. "I can't promise you you'll walk. No one can. But I can promise you that if we do this, really do this, you won't be the same person you are right now. And maybe that matters more than walking." Miranda looked at him through wet eyes. "You mean that?" Every word. She reached for the tennis ball on the table. She held it in her right hand. She squeezed it, hard. "Again tomorrow?" she said. 6 a.m. "I'll be here." "I know you will." Miranda turned her chair toward the door. She paused halfway. "Evan?" "Yeah?" "The hum. In my foot. I did feel it. It wasn't nothing." "No," he said. "It wasn't nothing." She left. Evan packed his bag slowly. The tennis ball, the resistance band, the massager, the notebook, now filled with new entries. He sat in the chair for another few minutes, alone. His hands were shaking again. They always shook after something real. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily, sent from Gloria's phone. "Dad, Mrs. Henderson said Jupiter looks amazing. She gave me a gold star. I told her you fixed it. She said you're a good fixer." Evan read it 3 times. Then he typed back, "That's because I learned from the best. You. Love you, Lil." He put the phone away and stood up. His body was exhausted. He'd worked a full shift, gotten 2 hours of sleep, and just spent the morning doing the most emotionally intense work of his life. But something inside him felt awake, alive, like a part of him that had been dormant since Sarah died was finally stirring. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. The doors opened. Hendricks was standing inside, clipboard in hand, that permanent scowl carved into his face. "Marsh, again." "Morning, Hendricks. You know I could report you for being on the executive floor outside your shift." "You could." "You know what would happen." "I'd lose my job." "That's right." Evan stepped into the elevator. They rode in silence for 10 floors. Then Evan spoke. "Do you ever wonder if there's more to life than enforcing the rules somebody else made up?" Hendricks stiffened. "I don't wonder about things that don't pay my mortgage." "Fair enough." The doors opened on the ground floor. Evan stepped out. "Marsh," Hendricks called after him. Evan turned. Hendricks looked at him for a long moment. Something flickered behind his eyes. Not kindness exactly, but something close to recognition. "Whatever you're doing up there, don't let it make you stupid." "Too late for that." Evan walked out into the cold morning. The city was fully awake now. Horns honking, people rushing, steam rising from grates in the sidewalk. He pulled his coat tighter and headed for the subway. His phone buzzed again. An unknown number. He answered. "Mr. Marsh, this is Claire Chen, Ms. Vale's executive assistant." "Yeah, hi." "Ms. Vale has asked me to inform you that she'd like to extend your sessions. Beginning next week, she'd like to meet 5 days a week instead of 3. Same time, same room." Evan stopped walking. Someone bumped into him from behind and cursed. He moved to the side of the sidewalk. 5 days a week, he repeated. "Yes, she's also authorized me to provide you with a security badge for the executive floors, so you won't have any issues with building management." Hendricks. Miranda had noticed. Of course she had. A woman didn't build an empire by missing details. "One more thing," Claire said. "She asked me to tell you, and this is a direct quote, tell him the hum is louder today." Evan closed his eyes.
He leaned against the building and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Tell her I'll be there Monday," he said. 4 alarms. "I'll relay the message." Claire hung up. Evan stood on the sidewalk, people flowing past him like water around a stone. He looked up at Vale Tower, 42 stories of glass and steel rising into the gray November sky. Somewhere up there, a woman who hadn't felt her legs in 5 years had felt a hum. And that hum was louder today. He put his phone in his pocket and walked toward the subway. His step was lighter than it had been in years. Monday came, and Evan showed up at 5:52. 4 alarms, just like he promised. Miranda was already in the conference room, but she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her wheelchair. Tall, silver hair, expensive suit. He had the kind of face that looked like it had been designed for courtrooms, sharp, calculated, and completely devoid of warmth. His arms were crossed, and he was staring at the door when Evan walked through it. Miranda's expression told Evan everything. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were flat. Whatever was happening, she hadn't planned it. "Evan, this is Dr. Leonard Cross," Miranda said. "He's the chief of neurology at Mount Sinai and my primary physician for the past 3 years." Dr. Cross didn't extend his hand. He looked at Evan the way a surgeon looks at a bandage someone applied wrong. "So you're the janitor," Cross said. "I am. Miranda tells me you've been conducting rehabilitation sessions with her. Unsupervised, without medical credentials, without liability coverage, without so much as a bachelor's degree." Evan set his bag on the table. "That's correct. And you told her you could help her walk again." "I told her I could help. I didn't guarantee outcomes." Cross turned to Miranda. "This is exactly what I warned you about. Unqualified individuals making reckless claims to vulnerable patients. This man has no license, no training, He has 2 years of graduate-level education in physical therapy," Miranda said. 2 years he didn't finish. That's like saying someone who dropped out of medical school after anatomy class is qualified to perform surgery. Evan felt the heat rise in his chest. He kept his voice even. "I'm not performing surgery. I'm doing sensory stimulation and guided neuroplastic exercises. Nothing invasive, nothing dangerous." Cross laughed. It was a short, dismissive sound. "Neuroplastic exercises. You read that in a textbook?" "Several, actually, including Kessler's work on incomplete spinal cord injuries, which I'm guessing you're familiar with, since he was your colleague at Sinai before he moved to Johns Hopkins." Cross's smile faded. He hadn't expected that. "I also read your paper," Evan continued, "the one you published in the Journal of Neurological Sciences in 2019. Limitations of Motor Recovery in Chronic Spinal Cord Injury. 14 pages explaining why patients like Miranda should manage expectations. Solid research. Well cited. But you left something out." "And what's that?" "You only studied patients who received traditional rehabilitation. Physical therapy, electrical stimulation, pharmacological intervention. You didn't include a single case where psychological trauma resolution was integrated with motor recovery protocols. You excluded the emotional variable entirely." The room went quiet. Cross stared at Evan. Miranda watched both of them like a spectator at a boxing match. "The emotional variable," Cross repeated slowly, "is not a recognized factor in spinal cord rehabilitation. It is in the literature I've read. Literature you read at the public library. Knowledge doesn't come with a pedigree, Dr. Cross. It comes with application." Cross turned to Miranda, his composure cracking for the first time. "Miranda, listen to me. I've treated you for 3 years. I have your complete medical history. Your injury is classified as AIS-B on the ASIA scale. Sensory incomplete, motor complete. That means some sensation may be preserved below the level of injury, but voluntary motor function is gone." There is no peer-reviewed, clinically proven method to restore motor function in a case like yours 5 years post-injury. None. Then explain the hum, Miranda said. Cross blinked. The what? Last week, during one of our sessions, I felt sensation in my right foot. Not full sensation, a vibration, a hum. First time in 5 years. That could be a number of things. Phantom sensation, psychosomatic response, nerve irritation. Or it could be the beginning of something, Evan said. Cross pointed at him. You are giving this woman false hope. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Do you have any idea what happens when a patient invests emotionally in a recovery that never comes? It doesn't just disappoint them, it destroys them. They crash harder than they were before. And you won't be there to pick up the pieces, because you'll have moved on to the next person you can impress with your library card and your charm. The words hit Evan like a fist, not because they were cruel, because they were partly true. He'd thought about this. Late at night, staring at the ceiling, he'd thought about what would happen if he was wrong. If the hum was nothing. If Miranda never walked. If he'd just been a desperate man projecting his need to save someone onto a woman who couldn't be saved. You're right, Evan said. Cross hadn't expected agreement. His posture shifted. If I'm wrong, Evan continued, it could hurt her. I know that. I think about it every day. But here's the thing, Dr. Cross. She was already hurting when I found her. She was sitting alone in the dark on the 42nd floor, crying. She'd given up. Not on walking, on living. And you, with your credentials and your published papers and your 3 years of treatment, you didn't see that. You were so focused on her spine that you forgot about the person attached to it. Cross opened his mouth to respond. Nothing came out. Miranda rolled her chair forward. Leonard, thank you for coming. I appreciate your concern. But this is my decision. Miranda, as your physician, as my physician, you told me 3 years ago that I would never walk again, and that I should focus on quality of life within my limitations. I accepted that. I built my life around it. And it made me miserable. If this man, janitor, dropout, whatever you want to call him, if he's offering me something nobody else has, I'm going to take it. Because the alternative is another 30 years in this chair, wondering, what if? Cross stood very still for a long moment. Then he picked up his briefcase. I'll have Claire schedule a comprehensive neurological exam for next week, he said. If there are genuine changes in your sensory profile, I want to document them. And if there aren't, he looked at Evan. If there aren't, I expect you to walk away. If there aren't, Evan said, I'll walk away myself. Cross left without another word. Miranda exhaled. It was the first time Evan had ever heard her let out a breath that sounded like relief. He's not wrong about everything, she said. I know. If you're wrong about this, it will break me. I know that too. Then we'd better not be wrong. They got to work. The sessions changed that week. Evan pushed harder. The sensory exercises intensified. He added temperature variation, using ice and warm towels in alternating patterns on Miranda's legs. He introduced proprioceptive challenges, having her close her eyes while he repositioned her feet and asking her to identify which direction they were pointing. She got it wrong most of the time. But on Wednesday, she got one right. Left foot, turned inward, she said, eyes closed. Evan checked. She was right. He wrote it in the notebook and kept his voice calm, but his hands were trembling. Good. Let's try the other one. Thursday was harder. The emotional work. Evan knew he couldn't avoid it anymore, and Miranda knew it too, though she fought it every step of the way. I want to try something different today, Evan said.
Instead of the exercises, I want you to talk to me. We talk every day. You give me information every day. That's not the same thing. Today, I want you to go back to the balcony." Miranda's face closed like a door slamming shut. "We discussed this already. I told you what happened. You told me the facts. You told me what happened like you were reading a police report. I need you to go back there, to that night, to what you felt." "Why?" "Because your body is holding the memory of that fall like a clenched fist. And until you open it, nothing below your waist is going to change." "You can't know that. I know that every time we get close to a breakthrough in the physical work, you shut down. Every single time. Your body starts to respond, and then something pulls the plug. That something isn't neurological. It's emotional. It's the fall. It's Richard. It's the moment your brain decided that feeling things was too dangerous." Miranda gripped her armrests. "I feel things." "You feel anger. You feel control. You feel the need to dominate every room you're in because the last time you were vulnerable, a man threw you off a balcony. But you don't feel grief. You don't feel fear. And you sure as hell don't feel the thing that scares you most. Which is? Trust." Miranda looked at him like he'd slapped her. "You don't trust your body," Evan said. "You don't trust doctors. You don't trust me, not fully. You show up, you do the exercises, but there's a part of you that's standing in the corner of this room with its arms crossed, waiting for me to fail. Waiting for me to hurt you, because that's what people do, right? In your experience. They hurt you, and they watch you fall." "Stop it." "Richard watched you fall and didn't move. Your body learned from that moment. It learned that being open, being vulnerable, being alive from the waist down means being in danger. So it shut down. It protected you the only way it knew how." "I said stop." "Your legs aren't just paralyzed, Miranda. They're hiding." "Stop it!" She screamed the words so loudly they echoed off the glass walls. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were wild. Evan could see the terror underneath the rage, the cornered animal panic of someone whose deepest wound has just been exposed. He didn't flinch. He didn't back off. "Feel that," he said quietly. "Whatever you're feeling right now, don't push it down. Don't control it. Just feel it." "You don't know what you're asking me to do." "I'm asking you to fall." Miranda's breath caught. "What?" "You're afraid of falling, not physically, emotionally. You're afraid that if you let yourself feel what happened, you'll shatter. You'll break apart, and nobody will be there to put you back together. But Miranda, you're already broken. You've been broken for 5 years. The difference is, right now, you're broken and pretending you're fine. I'm asking you to be broken and honest." Miranda's hands flew to her face. She pressed her palms against her eyes, and a sound came out of her that Evan had only heard once before. The sound Sarah made when the doctor told her the cancer was terminal. Not a scream, not a sob. Something deeper. Something that came from the place where hope goes to die. She cried. She cried the way someone cries when they haven't cried in years. In waves, in convulsions. Her whole body shook, and for the first time, Evan could see movement in her legs. Not voluntary, not controlled, but her body was responding to the emotion. Her left knee shifted. Her right foot turned. Tiny, involuntary spasms that meant more than any clinical test could measure. Evan knelt beside her. He didn't touch her. He didn't say anything. He just knelt there, present, the way he'd been present at Sarah's bedside, the way he was present when Lily cried about Jupiter. Miranda cried for 20 minutes. When she finally stopped, she was exhausted. Her face was swollen.
Her hands were limp in her lap. She looked devastated. She looked destroyed. She also looked free. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know. I've spent 5 years building walls, and you just—" The walls were keeping you safe, but they were also keeping you stuck. "What if I need them?" "You don't. Not anymore." Miranda looked down at her legs. Her right foot had shifted on the footrest. It was turned outward now, a few degrees from where it had been. She hadn't moved it. Her body had moved it for her. "Evan," she said. Her voice was barely audible. "Look at my foot." "I see it." "I didn't do that."
Your body did. Your emotions triggered an involuntary motor response. Your brain sent a signal, and your leg received it. Miranda stared at her foot, and then something extraordinary happened. She concentrated, eyes locked on her right foot, jaw tight. Every ounce of willpower focused on a single point, and her big toe twitched. It wasn't much, 1/2 centimeter of movement, a flutter. But it was voluntary. She'd willed it, and it had happened. "Oh my God," she said. "Do it again." She focused. The toe twitched again. Then again. 3 times in a row. Miranda looked up at Evan. Her eyes were red and swollen and completely alive. "I moved it," she said. "I moved my toe." "Yes, you did." "I moved it." "Miranda, listen to me. What just happened is extraordinary, but it's also fragile. Your brain found a pathway, a tiny, weak connection that's been dormant for 5 years. We need to reinforce it. Every day, over and over. It's going to be slow. Some days it'll work, and some days it won't. But this, right here, right now, this is proof. Proof that I'm not broken. Proof that you never were, not the way you thought." Miranda laughed, a real laugh, broken and wet and ugly, and the most beautiful sound Evan had heard in 4 years. "I need to call Dr. Cross," she said. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because this is yours. This moment belongs to you. Don't give it to a doctor to measure and classify and write a paper about. Sit with it. Let it mean something." Miranda looked at her toe. She moved it again. 4th time. 5th. Each movement came a little easier. "Sarah would have liked you," Evan said. He didn't know why he said it. It just came out. Miranda looked at him. "Why?" "Because she always said the bravest people aren't the ones who don't fall. They're the ones who feel the ground hit and get up anyway." "I haven't gotten up yet." "You moved your toe. That's getting up." Miranda wiped her face with both hands. She took a long, deep breath. Then she looked at Evan with the clearest eyes he'd ever seen. "We're going to need that gym on 38, she said. "Yeah? If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Real equipment, real sessions. I'll have Claire set it up." "Okay. And Evan, I want you to bring Lily sometime." He blinked. "Lily?" "You talk about her constantly. Every analogy, every metaphor, every lesson, it comes back to her. She's clearly the reason you're who you are. I'd like to meet her." Evan felt something shift in his chest. Something warm and unfamiliar that he couldn't quite name. "She'd like that," he said. "She'd probably try to fix your wheelchair. She's going through a phase where she thinks she can fix everything. Wonder where she gets that from." He smiled. Really smiled. And for the first time since he'd walked into this conference room 3 weeks ago, Miranda smiled back.
Not the ghost of a smile. Not the memory of one. A real, full, present-tense smile that reached her eyes and stayed there. They didn't speak for a few seconds. The silence was comfortable, natural. The silence of two people who had stopped pretending. Then Miranda's phone buzzed. Claire. Ms. Vale, your 10 o'clock with the board is in 20 minutes. Also, Dr. Cross has called 3 times. Miranda picked up the phone. Tell the board I'll be 10 minutes late. And tell Leonard I'll call him when I'm ready. Not before. She hung up and looked at Evan. Same time tomorrow? Same time tomorrow. And Evan? Yeah? Thank you for not letting me hide. He picked up his bag, the tennis ball, the resistance band, the massager, the notebook that now contained the most important entry he'd ever written. Day 8. Patient achieved voluntary toe movement, right foot. Motor response preceded by intense emotional release. Hypothesis confirmed. Psychological barrier directly inhibiting motor recovery. Breakthrough. He walked to the elevator. The doors opened. He stepped in and pressed the button for the lobby. His phone buzzed. A photo from Gloria. Lily at school, standing in front of the class, holding her solar system project. Jupiter was front and center, slightly orange, proudly displaying its gold star. The caption read, "She told the whole class her dad is the best planet fixer in New York." Evan leaned against the elevator wall. He looked at the photo for a long time. Then he opened his notes app and added one more line to his plan. Week 4. Goal: bilateral toe movement. Week 6. Ankle dorsiflexion. Week 8. Knee flexion against gravity. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. Hendricks was standing there, clipboard in hand, blocking the exit like he always did. Marsh. Hendricks. Got something for you. Hendricks reached into his pocket and pulled out a security badge. It was different from Evan's janitorial badge. It was silver, with an executive floor clearance hologram on the front. Ms. Vale's office sent it down. Executive access, 24/7. Evan took the badge. Hendricks looked at it like it personally offended him. I've worked in this building for 11 years, Hendricks said. Never even been invited to the executive floor for a Christmas party. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just... Hendricks stopped. He rubbed the back of his neck. Just don't screw it up, whatever it is. I'll try. Try harder than that. Evan clipped the badge to his shirt and walked out of Vale Tower. The cold air hit his face, and he breathed it in. The city rushed around him, indifferent and eternal. 8 million people carrying 8 million stories. His phone rang. An unknown number again. He answered. Mr. Marsh, this is Dr. Leonard Cross. Evan stopped walking. Doctor? I just got off the phone with Miranda. She told me about the toe movement. Silence. I want to run a full assessment. EMG, nerve conduction studies, updated MRI. That's between you and Miranda. It is, but I also want to observe one of your sessions, firsthand. Evan hesitated. This was either an olive branch or a trap. Why? He asked. Cross was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, the arrogance was gone. What replaced it sounded a lot like humility. Because in 27 years of practicing neurology, I've never had a patient classified as motor complete, achieve voluntary movement 5 years post-injury. Whatever you're doing, Mr. Marsh, whether it's science, luck, or something I don't have a name for, I'd like to understand it. Evan looked back at Vale Tower. 42 stories of glass and steel. Somewhere up there, a woman was moving her toe for the 6th, 7th, 8th time, learning that her body hadn't given up on her after all. Monday,
Evan said. 6 a.m. Don't be late. He hung up and walked toward the subway. His step was light. The badge gleamed on his chest, and somewhere in his worn gym bag, between the tennis ball and the resistance band and the $12 massager from CVS, the battered notebook held the proof that broken things still work. Just like Sarah said. Dr. Cross showed up at 6 a.m. on Monday. He brought 2 assistants, a portable EMG machine, and the expression of a man who is about to either witness something remarkable or confirm his own skepticism. Either way, he was prepared. Miranda was already in the rehabilitation gym on 38. She'd had Claire outfitted over the weekend. New parallel bars, adjustable height treatment tables, resistance equipment, and a full-length mirror along one wall. The $2 million gym she'd never used was finally open for business. Evan arrived at 5:55. He stopped when he saw the gym. It was more equipment than he'd ever had access to, even at NYU. For a moment, he felt the old familiar doubt creep in. The voice that said he didn't belong here, that he was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Then Miranda rolled through the door and said, "You're early again. I'm starting to think you actually sleep here." The doubt vanished. "Show Dr. Cross what you showed me," Evan said. Miranda positioned her wheelchair facing the mirror. She looked at her feet. She concentrated, and her right big toe moved. Not a twitch, a deliberate, controlled flexion. Up and down. 3 times. Cross leaned forward in his chair. He didn't say a word. His assistant began recording. "Now the left," Evan said. Miranda shifted her focus. Her left toe moved. Slower than the right, weaker, but unmistakable. Cross stood up. He walked to Miranda and knelt beside her wheelchair, pulling a reflex hammer from his coat pocket. He tapped below her right knee. Nothing. He tapped below her left. A faint, barely perceptible kick. He looked up at Miranda with an expression Evan had never seen on the man's face. "When did the left side start responding?" Cross asked. 3 days ago, Miranda said. "Friday morning." Cross turned to Evan. "What did you do on Thursday?" "Emotional processing work. Intensive." She relived the trauma of the fall for the first time, without dissociating. "And the motor response followed the next morning?" "Yes." Cross sat back. He rubbed his jaw. His assistants looked at him, waiting for direction. "Run the EMG," Cross said quietly. "Full lower extremity panel. Both sides." The test took 45 minutes. Evan watched the monitors as electrical signals were measured in muscles that hadn't fired in 5 years. The readings were faint, barely above baseline in most areas. But they were there. Tiny electrical whispers in the vastus medialis, the tibialis anterior, the gastrocnemius. Muscles waking up like lights coming on in a house that had been dark for years. When it was over, Cross pulled Evan aside. Miranda was talking to Claire on the phone, already back in CEO mode, rearranging her afternoon. "I owe you an apology," Cross said. Evan shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. You were protecting your patient." "I was protecting my ego. There's a difference." Cross looked at the EMG printouts in his hand. "These readings are inconsistent with a motor-complete injury. They always were. I classified her as AISB based on standard testing protocols, but there were always borderline signals I attributed to artifact or noise. I should have looked deeper." "You looked where your training told you to look. And you looked where yours told you to look. The difference is, yours was right." Cross folded the printouts carefully. "I want to continue monitoring her. Weekly assessments. If this progression holds, I want to document it properly. Co-author a case study." "You'd put a janitor's name on a medical paper?" I'd put the name of the man who got my patient to move her toes after 5 years of paralysis. Whatever title comes after your name is irrelevant. Evan extended his hand. Cross shook it. His grip was firm, and for the first time, it wasn't the grip of a man asserting dominance. It was the grip of a colleague. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Miranda's life, and the most alive she'd felt since before the fall. Evan pushed her relentlessly. Every morning at 6, 5 days a week, they worked in the gym on 38. The sessions followed a pattern: physical first, emotional second, but the line between them blurred more every day. Miranda couldn't make progress with her body without confronting something in her mind, and she couldn't confront something in her mind without her body responding. Week 5, she achieved ankle dorsiflexion. She could pull her toes upward against gravity. It was a movement most people did 10,000 times a day without thinking. Miranda did it once and burst into tears. "I used to run marathons," she said, staring at her ankle like it was a miracle. "I ran the New York City Marathon in 2016, 3 hours and 42 minutes. And now I'm crying because I can lift my foot?" "You should be crying," Evan said. "That foot has been asleep for 5 years, and it just woke up. That deserves tears." Week 7, she achieved knee flexion. Lying on the treatment table, she bent her right knee. 2 inches, then 3, then 5. The muscles trembled violently, atrophied and weak, but they obeyed. For the first time in 5 years, they obeyed. Cross documented everything. The EMG readings improved weekly. The nerve conduction studies showed increasing signal velocity in pathways that had been dormant. He called it unprecedented. He called it remarkable. He called 3 colleagues at Johns Hopkins and asked them to review the data independently. They all said the same thing. They'd never seen anything like it. Week 9, Evan brought Lily. It was a Saturday. Miranda had asked again, and Evan had run out of reasons to say no. Lily wore her favorite purple dress and carried a small gift bag she'd put together herself, a drawing of a sunset and a pack of Skittles. Miranda was in the gym when they arrived. She looked nervous, which was something Evan had never seen. This was a woman who'd faced down hostile boardrooms, congressional hearings, and 9 of the world's top neurologists without blinking. But an 8-year-old girl with a gift bag made her fidget. Lily walked right up to the wheelchair and stuck out her hand. "Hi, I'm Lily. My dad talks about you a lot." Miranda shook her hand. "He talks about you a lot, too." "I know. He says you're really brave. Are you really brave?" Miranda glanced at Evan. He shrugged. "Kids don't do small talk." "I'm trying to be," Miranda said. "That counts," Lily said. She held up the gift bag. "I brought you Skittles. The red ones are the best, but I left them all in because Dad said it's polite to give the whole bag." Miranda took the bag. She looked inside at the drawing, a sunset over water, painted in bright, uneven strokes of orange and purple. At the bottom, in careful child's handwriting, it said, "For Miranda, keep going. From Lily." Miranda held the drawing for a long time. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Evan watched her face and saw something shift, the last piece of something falling into place, the last wall coming down. "This is beautiful, Lily," Miranda said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were not. "Dad helped with the sun, but I did the water myself." "The water is my favorite part." Lily grinned. Then she looked at Miranda's legs. "Can you move them yet?" "A little. Your dad's been helping me." "He's good at fixing things. He fixed my Jupiter." "I heard about Jupiter. It's more orange now, but Mrs. Henderson said that makes it unique. She said unique is better than perfect." Miranda looked at Evan. "Mrs. Henderson sounds like a wise woman." "She gives gold stars," Lily said, as if that settled the matter. Lily stayed for an hour,
She sat on the treatment table and watched while Evan worked with Miranda on standing exercises. They'd progressed to the parallel bars, Miranda gripping the bars with her hands, while Evan supported her at the waist, helping her shift weight onto legs that were slowly, painfully remembering how to bear it. "You're leaning left," Evan said. "Shift right. Trust the right leg." "It's shaking." "It's supposed to shake. Your muscles are rebuilding. The shaking means they're working." "It means they're about to give out." "Not yet. 10 more seconds. Come on." Miranda gritted her teeth. Her arms strained against the bars. Her legs trembled violently. Sweat ran down her temples. She held for 8 seconds. 9. 10. "Good. Sit." She collapsed back into the wheelchair, breathing hard. Lily clapped. "That was awesome," Lily said. "You stood up for like a whole minute." "It was 10 seconds, sweetheart," Evan said. "It felt like a minute." Miranda laughed between gasps. "It felt like a year." After the session, Lily asked if she could push Miranda's wheelchair to the elevator. Miranda said yes. Lily pushed with the intense concentration of a child entrusted with something important. At the elevator, she stopped and looked up at Miranda. "My mom died," Lily said, simply, like stating a fact. Miranda looked at Evan. His face was taut, but he didn't intervene. "I know," Miranda said softly. "Your dad told me. She was really nice. She used to sing to me before bed. Dad tries, but he's not very good at singing." "I'm standing right here, Lil," Evan said. "I'm just being honest, Dad. You always say to be honest." Miranda reached down and took Lily's hand. "I bet your mom had a beautiful voice." "She did. Dad says I sound like her. I don't know because I can't really remember it. But sometimes, when I'm falling asleep, I think I hear it." Miranda squeezed Lily's hand. She didn't let go for a long time. After they left, Miranda sat alone in the gym. She looked at the drawing Lily had given her. She looked at the parallel bars. She looked at her feet, feet that could now flex and extend and bear weight, however briefly. She picked up her phone and called Claire. "The annual gala," Miranda said. "When is it?" 6 weeks from now, ma'am. December 14th. The Four Seasons. 800 confirmed guests. I want to make some changes to the program." "What kind of changes?" "I'll let you know." Miranda hung up. She looked at the parallel bars one more time. Then she rolled her chair to the bars, locked the brakes, and gripped the rails. Alone. No Evan. No spotter. Just her. She pulled herself up. Her legs screamed. Her arms burned. Her whole body fought against her. But she stood. For 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. She stood on her own 2 feet in an empty gym on the 38th floor of the building she'd built, and she felt the ground beneath her for the first time in 5 years. She sat back down before her legs gave out. She was crying again. But these weren't the tears from the dark conference room. These weren't the tears of grief or rage or helplessness. These were the tears of someone who was coming back to life. The next 6 weeks were a war. Evan came every morning. Cross came every Monday. The sessions grew longer and more intense. Miranda progressed from standing at the bars to taking assisted steps, 1 foot in front of the other, Evan at her side, his hands ready to catch her if she fell. She fell. Often. Hard. The first time, her knees buckled without warning, and she went down fast. Evan caught her before she hit the floor, but the impact of the collapse, the sudden helplessness, the loss of control, sent her spiraling. "I can't do this," she gasped, gripping his arms. "You just did 3 steps. 3 more than yesterday. And then I fell." Falling is part of walking. Ask any toddler. I'm not a toddler." "No, you're a woman who's learning something harder than anything a toddler has to do. A toddler doesn't have 5 years of fear telling them the ground isn't safe. You do. And you took 3 steps anyway. That's not failure. That's war." She fell again the next day, and the next. But each time she got back up faster. Each time the steps came easier. 4, 6, 8, a dozen. 2 weeks before the gala, she walked across the gym unassisted. 22 steps. From the parallel bars to the mirror on the opposite wall.
Her gait was unsteady. Her legs shook with every step, and she moved with the desperate, beautiful determination of someone crossing a finish line they were told didn't exist. When she reached the mirror, she stopped. She looked at herself. Standing, on her own feet, her own legs. Her face stared back at her, not the iron woman of Wall Street, not the billionaire in the wheelchair, not the broken woman in the dark conference room. Just Miranda. Whole. Cracked and scarred and imperfect, and standing. Evan stood behind her. She could see his reflection. He was crying. He never cried during sessions. He was always steady, always composed, always the anchor. But now, watching her stand in front of that mirror, he couldn't hold it. "Sarah would have been proud of you," he said. Miranda met his eyes in the reflection. "She'd have been proud of you, too." The night of the gala arrived. 800 guests, black tie, the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons. Every table was filled with executives, politicians, philanthropists, and journalists. The annual Vale Industries Gala was always the event of the season. But this year, Miranda had made changes to the program that nobody knew about. Not the board, not the press, not even Claire, who'd been told only to ensure that the stage had no podium and no ramp. Evan sat at a table near the back. He wore a rented tuxedo that didn't quite fit in the shoulders. Beside him sat Lily, in a new dress Gloria had bought for the occasion. And Gloria herself, who kept whispering that she couldn't believe she was eating $40 appetizers in the same room as the governor. Dr. Cross sat at the next table. He'd been invited personally by Miranda. He looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo. His wife kept elbowing him to stop checking his phone. The lights dimmed. The room quieted. A spotlight hit the stage. Claire's voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO of Vale Industries, Miranda Vale." The curtain at the side of the stage parted. Miranda appeared in her wheelchair, wearing a black gown, her hair down for the first time Evan had ever seen. She rolled to the center of the stage. The audience applauded politely, the same applause they gave every year, respectful and measured. Miranda raised her hand, and the room went silent. "5 years ago," she said, "I fell off a balcony. You all know that. It was in every newspaper, every magazine, every news cycle for months. What you don't know is why I fell. You don't know that someone I trusted put me over that railing. You don't know that I lay on the ground and watched him stand above me and do nothing. You don't know that the fall didn't just break my spine. It broke me." The room was absolutely still. 800 people held their breath. "For 5 years I've sat in this chair, and I've told myself a story. The story was that I was strong, that I'd overcome, that the wheelchair didn't define me. And that was true. But it was also a lie. Because underneath the strength and the press conferences and the quarterly earnings reports, I was hiding. I was so afraid of feeling what happened to me that I shut my own body down. I couldn't walk, not just because my spine was injured, but because my heart was." She paused. She looked out into the audience.
She found Evan, their eyes locked. And then a janitor told me he could help me walk again. A murmur rippled through the room. Miranda waited for it to pass. His name is Evan Marsh. He's a single father. He works the night shift mopping floors in my building. He dropped out of physical therapy school because he couldn't afford it after his wife died. He has no degree, no credentials, no letters after his name. And he saw something in me that 9 of the world's best doctors missed. He saw that I'd stopped living. And he refused to accept it.
Miranda locked the brakes on her wheelchair. She placed her hands on the armrests. Evan taught me that healing isn't about the body. It's about the truth. It's about looking at the worst thing that ever happened to you and saying, "You don't own me." It's about trusting someone when everything inside you is screaming not to. It's about being willing to fall, really fall, and believing that this time someone will be there. She pushed herself up from the chair. Her arms trembled, her legs shook. The audience gasped. Someone stood up, then another person, then 10, 20, 50. Miranda stood on the stage, on her own 2 feet, the wheelchair behind her, empty. "I'm not going to tell you this was easy," she said. Her voice was steady, even though her legs were not. It wasn't. I fell more times than I can count. I screamed. I cried. I told Evan I hated him at least twice a week. I wanted to quit every single day. She took a step, then another. The audience was on its feet now, all 800 of them, and the sound that came from the room was something beyond applause. It was a collective, wordless expression of awe. But I didn't quit, because a man who mops floors for $14 an hour showed me something that money can't buy and medicine can't prescribe. He showed me that broken things still work. She walked, step by step, unsteady and trembling and magnificent. She walked across the stage. 12 steps, 15, 20, each one stronger than the last, each one a declaration. She stopped at the edge of the stage and looked down at Evan. He was standing. Lily was standing on her chair beside him, clapping with her whole body. Gloria had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Cross was standing too, his phone forgotten, his eyes wide. "Evan," Miranda said into the microphone, "thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for refusing to let me hide, and for teaching my body what my heart already knew, that I was never really broken. I was just waiting for someone brave enough to help me believe it." The room erupted. The applause was deafening, rolling through the ballroom like thunder. People were crying, strangers, executives, the governor's wife, waiters standing along the walls. Miranda stood on that stage, tears on her face, the spotlight catching every imperfect, beautiful human inch of her. And she didn't sit down. She stood. Evan lifted Lily off her chair and held her against his chest. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered in his ear, "Dad, you fixed her." He closed his eyes. He held his daughter. He felt Sarah everywhere, in the room, in the air, in the impossible, stubborn, miraculous fact that a woman who was told she'd never walk again had just crossed a stage on her own 2 legs. After the gala, Evan found Miranda backstage. She was back in her wheelchair. Her legs had given out after 3 minutes of standing, and the medical team crossed its station behind the curtain had eased her back into the chair. But she didn't look defeated. She looked like someone who'd just summited a mountain and was already planning the next one. "You okay?" Evan asked. "My legs feel like they're on fire." "That's a good sign. Everything with you is a good sign." He sat down across from her. Lily was with Gloria, getting dessert from the buffet table. The backstage area was quiet compared to the roaring ballroom. "What happens now?" Miranda asked. "Now we keep working. You walked 20 steps tonight. By spring, I want you doing 50. By summer,
I want you walking out of this building on your own. And your janitorial career? Evan smiled. I think Hendricks will survive without me. Miranda reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She held it out to him. What's this? Open it. He opened it. Inside was a letter on Vale Industries letterhead. A full scholarship to NYU's Doctor of Physical Therapy program, funded by the Miranda Vale Foundation. Tuition, books, housing stipend, child care for Lily. Everything. Evan stared at the letter. The words blurred. You can't, he started. I can. I did. And before you say something noble about not accepting charity, let me be clear. This isn't charity. This is an investment. The world needs what you have, Evan. Not just me. The world. And I refuse to let financial hardship be the reason it doesn't get it. Miranda, you told me once that knowledge doesn't care about your tax bracket. You were right. So stop mopping floors and go finish what you started. He held the letter in his hands that had held Sarah's as she died, his hands that had fixed Jupiter, his hands that had helped a billionaire stand for the first time in 5 years. Rough hands, working hands, hands that finally, after everything, were being given the chance to become what they were always meant to be. I don't know what to say, he whispered. Say you'll show up. That's what you do, right? You show up. Yeah, he said. That's what I do. Miranda smiled. Good, because I expect my physical therapist to have a degree by the time I'm running marathons again. You're going to run a marathon? 3 hours and 42 minutes. That's my time to beat. That might take a while. I've got time. For the first time in 5 years, I've got all the time in the world. Lily appeared from behind the curtain, holding a plate piled high with chocolate cake. She had frosting on her nose. Dad, they have 3 kinds of cake, she announced. And I tried all of them. Grandma said I could. Grandma's going to hear about that later. Miranda, do you want some? The chocolate one is the best. Miranda took a forkful of cake from Lily's plate. She ate it. She laughed. She looked at Evan, at Lily, at the backstage chaos of a night that had changed everything. And she felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. She felt home. Not a place, not a building, not an empire. Home the way it's supposed to feel. Messy and imperfect, and full of people who show up. Evan walked out of the Four Seasons that night with his daughter on his shoulders and his mother on his arm and a scholarship letter in his pocket. The city was cold and loud and alive. Lily was singing something off-key, something she'd heard on the radio, and Gloria was telling her to keep it down because it was past her bedtime. He looked up at the sky. No stars, never any stars in Manhattan. But he could feel them. The way Miranda felt the hum before she could name it. The way he'd felt Sarah's presence in that ballroom. Some things are real, even when you can't see them. Some things are true, even when the evidence hasn't caught up yet. A janitor had walked into a dark conference room and told a broken woman he could help her walk. The world would have called him crazy. The doctors would have called him reckless. The credentials committee would have called him unqualified. But Miranda Vale was standing tonight. Standing on her own 2 feet, in front of 800 people, telling the truth for the first time in 5 years. Standing because a man with a mop and a $12 massager and a battered notebook full of handwritten notes believed in something that no amount of money or degrees could manufacture. He believed that broken things still work. And tonight, the whole world saw the proof.